Hey guys, so I just wanted to say thank you real quick for all of your love and support on my last video about credit scores. I was really nervous about posting that video, but thank you so much for all of your kindness and all of your wonderful feedback on that video. If you missed it, I'll include a link in the description of this video for you to go check out that one. I go all in depth about credit scores and even talk about me getting a credit card for the very first time in 6 years. Yes, if you are new here, my name is Jessie Fearon. I share my family's real life on a budget, all our successes and failures with money, and we are 100% debt-free, which means that we also have a paid-for home. And we had gone 6 years without a single credit card, and so for that last video, I got a credit card just to see if I could bring up my credit score, because once you have no debt and no open lines of credit, your credit scores, and mine had gotten to the lowest point that had ever been in my entire life. And so I set out on a little experiment to see if I could bring up my credit score and how quickly I could do so. And so that's what that last video was all about. But today's video is going to be about all the things that Dave Ramsey teaches, and are they worth it? So being a debt-free living enthusiast, I get asked all the time about Dave Ramsey, his baby steps, the total money makeover, Giselle intensity, all of these things. And so many people want to know, like, is it worth the hype? Like, is what he preaches the gospel? Like, is this the only way to become debt-free? And so I'm going to kind of break that down and answer a lot of the questions that are kind of all around online and in the debt-free community, and just to kind of talk about them, to talk about like how it all applies to your actual life. All right, so the very first question is $1,000 really enough for a starter emergency fund? So if you are familiar with Dave Ramsey, you know that baby step one is to save up $1,000 in an emergency fund, so in a starter emergency fund. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I don't necessarily preach that same message. Now, I do think the minimum, the absolute minimum you should save in a starter emergency fund is $1,000. But I don't think that that has to be necessarily the goal with the starter emergency fund. So a starter emergency fund is just literally getting started. It's not meant to be enough money to cover your monthly expenses for 6 months. It's just enough money that's meant to kind of be there and support you while you move on to the next steps, to the next phases. And so again, if you're following Dave Ramsey, the very next phase is baby step 2, which is to pay off all of your consumer debt. So all the debt except for your house. And so the purpose of having that $1,000 starter emergency fund like Dave recommends is so then that way you have money set aside so you can pay for emergencies that happen and you don't have to go back into debt. Here's where I see the issue, and a lot of people argue about this a lot, is that depending upon your lifestyles, your family size, all of those things, $1,000 may not be enough. Again, I think the minimum should definitely be $1,000, but for so many people, that $1,000 isn't enough, because let me tell you, in the month of October, so October of last year, my HVAC system in my house, my 20-year-old AC and my 40-year-old furnace all died on me in the month of October. My septic tank backed up and flooded my finished basement and laundry room. And we also discovered a massive electrical issue, and that required my entire house being rewired. Thank God I am married to a contractor and he was able to do this. But like literally we had to have the power shut off at the street so my husband could do it because my house almost caught on fire, guys. So that was all in the month of October. And so when I tell you that the total cost of all of that was $20,000. Now granted, home insurance helped with some of the flooding issue in the basement. They didn't pay to pump the septic tank, but it did help to cover like the remediation cost of getting all of sanitizing the basement and of course ripping out all of everything down there. It's really awful. But $20,000, guys, that was my month of October. Here's the thing. Now we are 100% debt free. So we had the money. So that wasn't the problem. We are now on this side of the financial spectrum. But if something like that had happened back when we were in baby step 2, when we were trying to pay off debt, $1,000 would not have covered it. $1,000 would have covered our home insurance deductible, which would have been great, but home insurance doesn't cover to have your septic tank pumped. They cover to have the remediation company come out and do the remediation and to rip out the stuff. And same with the fact that your home insurance company isn't going to cover when your HVAC system goes out. But if you're like me and you live in a 41-year-old home and it had the original furnace and it had a 20-year-old AC unit, well, there's a big chance it's going to go out at some point, right? But if you're in that beginning phase of trying to become financially free, you're not going to necessarily have the over $7,000 it costs to replace your HVAC system. And if you live in a home that has more than one system, think about that. That's a lot of money. I'm not saying that I disagree with Dave in the sense that you should have $10,000 in a starter emergency fund, because for most people, $10,000 is not an amount that you're going to be able to save up in 3 months. I think that this starter emergency fund number needs to be something you can realistically save within 3 months, because I believe that the reason that Dave preaches that $1,000 minimum threshold is because for most folks, making $1,000 happen in a short time period, within that 3-month time period, is very doable. Most people, if they cut down their grocery bill, they stop eating out, they just kind of sacrifice real hard for 3 months, they can save up $1,000. I don't want to say easily, but it can happen. It's realistic. But most people aren't going to be able to save up $10,000 in 3 months. So I totally get that. But again, I disagree in the sense that $1,000 is enough, because I don't believe that it's truly enough. I think it will cover you in some emergencies, but it's not going to cover you in all of them. And in fact, my husband actually was very much so against the $1,000 starting threshold. He was like, no, I want $2,000. And so we didn't start our debt payoff goals until we had gotten to $2,000, which it took us a little longer than 3 months to get there, just because of how tight our budget was when we started this whole process. And so your starter emergency fund number just needs to be one that you can set aside in 3 months, the minimum being $1,000. So if you can do $2,000 or $3,000 in that 3-month time period, do that. Get that saved and stored away, and then start baby step 2. I'm even a huge fan of going in tandem, which my husband and I, we actually did this throughout our debt-free journey, because again, we weren't comfortable just having that $2,000. So what we did in tandem is that we saved up our $2,000 starter emergency fund, and then we paid off the next debt on our snowball. Then we paused the debt snowball and went back to saving up money to kind of beef up that emergency fund a little bit more. And then we hit the next goal mark, and then we went back to paying off our next debt on our snowball. And so I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. I know that goes against Dave Ramsey's teaching, and that is classified as quote unquote Davish. But I do believe that you have to decide for yourself and for your family what makes the most sense. If you're a single person who doesn't have any dependents, you rent, you don't own a home, maybe having $1,000 or $2,000 as a starter emergency fund and just leaving it there is plenty. That could totally be fine for now. But if you have a family and you have larger expenses and larger things that are going to cost you more money, then you might need more money saved in your emergency fund. So I think it's all dependent upon you and your lifestyle and your family in order to be able to figure out what amount makes most sense for you. The other really, really big Dave question I get all the time is, should I really stop contributing to my retirement while I pay off debt? So we did not stop contributing to my husband's 401k when we were on the debt-free journey. In fact, we did not contribute 15% to his retirement, but his employer that he had at the time, they would match up to 6%. And so we would contribute. So we only contributed 6% into his 401k, but we still did that the entire time that he was working for that company, which included the time that we were on both baby step 2 and baby step 3. So again, I think that this really is dependent upon you and upon your family and what makes sense for you, because sure, it maybe contributing 15% to your retirement is way too much money. Maybe it's taking too much money from your paycheck, and you're not going to be able to pay off debt or save money in a liquid savings account like your emergency fund as quickly as you need to, because so much of your income is going towards retirement. So maybe you lower the amount of contributions that you're contributing to your retirement accounts, and maybe you don't stop them altogether. But I think it really just depends on what makes the most sense for you and for your family. If you're younger, you might be able to get away with not contributing anything at all to your 401k. But if you are getting closer and closer to that age of retirement, it may not make sense for you to completely stop saving for retirement at the stage that you're at, because maybe you haven't quite met your retirement goals. But again, maybe just scaling back the percentage that you're contributing at the moment will help you be able to pay off some of this burden of debt and save up more liquid cash in order to be able to put more money into retirement and be more aggressive in that, way. Another big Dave question is, do I really have to close all of my credit card accounts? So like I said at the start of this video, we had gone 6 years without a single credit card. That means that we closed all of our credit cards in March of 2013. So we had no credit cards at all. So that's why when I did my little experiment in the last video, I had to open a credit card because I didn't even have one to use to test anything with. I had to go get a credit card. Do I think you have to close all of your credit card accounts in order to be successful financially? No, I don't think that. There are plenty of people that I know that they have credit cards, they use them, they pay them off every single month on time, in full, they never carry a balance, and they're magnificent with it. I am not that person. Mm-mm. But I will tell you that I was not that person. Neither was my husband. We were not those people. And we needed to close those credit cards that we had because the temptation to spend, the temptation of that credit card being there to save us in an emergency was too high. And if that is the case for you as well, I would recommend actually closing those credit cards while you climb your way out of debt. And then maybe considering reopening them once you get out of debt if that's something that you want to pursue. But I will say that if you are truly struggling with having that credit card and the temptation to spend money on it and to sink yourself back into debt, then I would definitely close them in order to save yourself from that, because you can wreck yourself financially by using a credit card. But do I believe that you are necessarily a bad person, you're immoral, you're going to fail financially if you use a credit card? No, I don't think that. They don't work for me, which is why I don't have one anymore. Like that opening that one for the last video proved that the spending habits are too easy to fall back into. So if you are really, really good and you pay off that credit card every single month and you have never carried a credit card balance, I applaud you. You're amazing. But for a lot of people, that is not the case, which is why Dave Ramsey recommends closing those cards, and he's a complete advocate for zero debts, zero lines of credit, zero all of that. That's why he's an advocate of it, because so many people cannot, they can't put those breaks and those stopping points and those boundaries upon their spending habits. And so, so if that is you, you may want to consider closing all of your credit cards, maybe. Another big Dave question I get is paying off your house really, truly worth it? Well, as someone who has a paid for home, I will tell you, absolutely hell yes, it is worth not having a mortgage anymore. Guys, taking that mortgage payment and being able to put it in my pocket is incredible. Like, it doesn't go to Wells Fargo anymore. It doesn't go to, interest or PMI or to any of that crap anymore. It doesn't go there anymore. It is now in my pocket, And I like that. And, but I get it. Like, not everybody wants to own their home outright. I totally understand that. But I will tell you that having a home that is truly yours is incredible. It changes kind of the way that you approach things. It really, truly does. Not only that, my husband, he is self-employed, and he's in construction. I mentioned before, he's a contractor. He's in construction. And so construction is one of those industries that it ebbs and flows with the economy so much that, like, it could be booming one second and the bottom fall out in the next. And so because of that, there's a lot of security that both me and my husband have with the fact that not only do we have that fully funded emergency fund sitting there, not only have we been living off a very small salary for years now, that our, lifestyle habits are what they are, but we also don't have any other consumer debt, and we have a paid for home, which means that we don't have to worry about if we can't make a mortgage payment for a month. We don't have to worry about that because the only person that's going to be missing the mortgage payment is us. It's not going to be a bank. They're not going to come foreclose on us. They're not going to come take our house. It's incredibly freeing, especially when you are living your dream of owning your own business and living on your own terms. It allows you to have that freedom. It affords you that freedom. It affords you that freedom where you can just go and do these things and not have to worry and have the stress and all of that, especially when you have a family. We're a family of 5 plus the sleeping dog over there. You see her? Yep. She's so vicious looking, isn't she? She's so vicious. So vicious. But we're a family of 5 plus the dog. And being able to have that security it's life-changing. I don't even really know how else to put it. It's truly life-changing. It's amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. And so if you are considering paying off your home, I encourage you to do so. It's incredible. Incredible. You won't regret it. Another question about Dave is, do we really have to save for our kids' college education? So this one is so controversial that I'm like a little nervous even talking about this, because I've mentioned this before on my blog and even on social media. My husband and I, we do not save actually for our kids' college. Yes, we are parents of 3 children, and we are not saving for their college. I know. We sound like terrible parents, don't we? We really do. But here's the thing. I'm from a blue-collar background. My husband's from a blue-collar background. I am a college graduate. I have my bachelor's in accounting. My husband is not a college graduate. He's a high school graduate, and he's been to college twice, but he's never graduated. And the thing is this, is that my husband and I, we know pretty well that there's probably at least one of our kids who's not going to college. And it's not because they're not smart. They're actually, their mechanical aptitude is off the charts. They're actually gifted when it comes to their mechanical abilities and their problem solving and their critical thinking. But they are not sitting in the classroom students. They're not, and neither is my husband. They are not the type of person that can sit in a classroom and learn. I say that because when you save the money for your kids' college in an ESA or a 529, that money is to be used for educational expenses. Now, depending on which account you go with, there's parameters, like some of the accounts you can roll over that you can gift to somebody else. So like they can gift it to a sibling, or they have their own children, they can roll it into their own kids' names. But a lot of these accounts come with other parameters. Like if you pull the money out and don't use it for educational expenses, you're taxed on it. A lot of times there's fees involved, so you lose a lot of the money. Not only that, I believe it's the ESA that you have to use by the time you're 30, or you have to roll it to somebody else. So there are advantages and disadvantages. For us, we decided to set up life accounts instead. They are not invested accounts. They are high yield savings accounts. So they do earn more interest than some other accounts. They're still not invested, so they're not going to earn the kind of money that an ESA or a 529 does. But we are okay with that, because even as of right now, there's enough money sitting in my children's life accounts that if they wanted to go to a vocational school, we could pay for it. It's not that big of a deal. And so I'm not worried about that. So for us, it's not a big deal. So we totally skipped baby step 5. Totally skipped it. And I have no regrets about it. Even if all 3 of my kids go to college, I have no regrets about it. I don't, because nowhere in the world does it say that it is my responsibility as a parent to pay for them to go to college. I know that that is shocking and makes some people want to smack me. I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, but here's the thing. My parents didn't pay for me to go to college. And I was the first one of my family to graduate from college. Yes, I took out student loans. Didn't like paying back those suckers. Those things absolutely sucked. But I will tell you that because it was on my shoulders to bear the burden and to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I ended up picking a much better career than the original one I was planning on. And not only that, it taught me how to maximize what I was doing. Because here's the thing, I worked a full-time job. I was a project manager working a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, and I took 6 in-class classes every single semester. So then that way I could max out how much I was paying every single semester for my education. It's why, even though my degree should have cost me significantly more money than it did, it was only $30,000. And I graduated from one of the top accounting schools in the entire Southeast. And I say that because had my parents paid for me to go to college, I'm going to tell you right now, one, I wouldn't have taken it seriously. I wouldn't have taken it seriously. I would have been like, oh, I just want to go live my life, go do this, go do that. Like, I would not have taken it seriously. And so, no, if you don't want to pay for your kids' college education, I don't think you have to. I think if you want to skip baby step 5, you can. Maybe, like I said, maybe that makes me sound like a terrible parent, but honestly, I'm okay with it. And then probably the biggest Dave thing that people get so upset about and lose their minds about is rice and beans. I can't tell you how many times that people call into Dave's show or they talk about it on social media about like, I cannot live off rice and beans. I cannot live off rice and beans. And people a lot of times use this as sort of an excuse to not take control of their finances. I know, I just went there. Here's the thing. My family, we did not live off rice and beans while we were paying off debt. We had to make a lot of sacrifices in the grocery department. Well, I say we, but I really mean my husband. He's a carnivore. He wants meat at every single meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a snack in between. He wants meat. That's what he wants. And so he had to make sacrifices on, going with some meatless meals throughout the week. And he wasn't the biggest fan of that. But we didn't live off just rice and beans. We didn't. Like, I need some veggies in that. I'm sorry, but I do. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. I know a lot of people follow specific diet trends. And so because of that, they feel that this will not work for them. They feel that Dave Ramsey's plan won't work for them because they follow specific diet trends, or their kids have allergies, or something else. And so because of that, they're like, well, I can't do rice and beans, so I'm never going to be able to save money or pay off debt or anything like that. Here's the reality, guys. You can totally save money. You can totally pay off debt. I don't think you have to live off rice and beans to do it. And again, this is me, I guess, disagreeing with Dave Ramsey. The key to saving money and paying off debt is changing your mindset. That's where it all starts with. So no, you don't have to live off rice and beans, but you do need to be aware of what you're spending your money on at the grocery store. If you're constantly going to the grocery store and just putting random stuff in your cart and you're bringing it home, and then, a week later you're throwing out a lot of stuff because you never ate it all, well, that's a big signal that you are overspending at the grocery store because you're not actually eating this stuff you're buying. And so you just need to get really real with what it is that you're buying, what your eating habits are. Or if you're continuously having to order takeout or go out to eat because there's not enough food at home, then that is a big signal to you that you're underspending at the grocery store, that you're not actually buying enough food to feed your family for the week. And if you are like me with growing kids in the house, especially 2 boys, you know that they go through these growth spurts where everything's fine and dandy, and then all of a sudden they're eating everything in the house and you don't have enough food in the house. But that needs to be your signal to you that, okay, I need to now up the grocery budget, or I need to reduce the grocery budget. That just needs to be your signal for you to be able to figure out, okay, do I need to increase the budget or decrease the budget? No right or wrong answer. And again, it doesn't have to be just rice and beans. The reason that Dave suggests that is because rice and beans, it's protein, it fills you up, and you can throw it into a lot of dishes. And rice and beans are good. I have no problem with rice and beans, but I can't just eat rice and beans every day. My stomach would be really sad if I did. Those are the most common sort of arguments and questions and comments that I see online and that I get asked all the time when it comes to following Dave Ramsey's baby steps and his methodologies. I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with Dave Ramsey's baby steps. I don't necessarily disagree with them, but I also do realize that we have been quote unquote Davish, and a lot of people don't like it when you're Davish. People get upset. I'm sure lots of people are going to tell me that they're upset that I'm talking about Davish versus actually being full-blown Dave Ramsey. But I truly believe in living a real life on a budget and figuring out what works for you and for your family, and that works within the priorities that you have set in place. And I believe that because of the fact that God created us all to be unique, and the way you use money is going to be unique to you. The things that you claim to be priorities in your life are going to be unique and special to your family. And so if you are quote unquote Davish, I would love to hear more about it. So leave me a comment below to let me know.